The next president of the United States. Good morning. Wake up, America. Rise in freedom. America turns 250 years old in 59 days, and we're already fighting over the birthday party. One side wants to dress the founders up in MAGA hats. The other side wants to turn the whole anniversary into a 4-hour apology tour with a land acknowledgement and a catered sandwich tray, and it'll be vegan. Ugh. God. Do you have any meat options? Today we're going to read what Jefferson actually wrote, what Hamilton actually argued, and what Madison actually designed, because the truth is more useful and more dangerous than anything that the mainstream wants you to believe. The truth is that the founding of the United States was a libertarian nationalist act before anyone called it that. Liberty grounded in civilization, rights rooted in nature, national strength in service of freedom. Jefferson's why and Hamilton's how running simultaneously in the same constitutional architecture. And if you understand that synthesis of Hamilton and Jefferson, you'll never be fooled by a politician or a podcast grifter again. Speaking of which, Marco Rubio walked into the White House briefing room yesterday. He quoted Cypress Hill. He dressed down reporters in 2 languages, and I think accidentally, maybe not, launched a 2028 presidential primary. Nobody has officially announced. So J.D. Vance was in Iowa refusing to take press questions and explaining a war that he privately opposed to farmers whose fertilizer bills have gone vertical. And we're going to run both of those men through the Libertarian nationalist scorecard today, and we'll deliver a verdict. Economics, foreign policy, character, and who earned the heir apparent title, and who's performing loyalty instead of governing by conviction. Then Jeremy Kauffman joins us, blockchain entrepreneur, currently the chairman of the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire. I know you're all excited for this. This is the same state party the national LP formally censured and invited to disaffiliate. The man who endorsed Trump over his own party's nominee and called the national leadership of the LP woke neoliberal globalists. Far kinder than I would have been, Jeremy. And we're going to ask Jeremy the question that the LP has been avoiding for 53 years. JD Tuccilli, contributing editor at Reason, joins us with a Gallup poll that will make every serious person in this country stop and think. Global desire to move to America has dropped from 24% to 15% since 2007. Hey, is that a good thing or a bad thing? The question that nobody is asking about this is which migrants aren't coming, and whether the data being used to make the economic case for open borders actually holds up when you separate legal from illegal, skilled from unskilled, and stop comparing working age labor migrants to every retiree and disabled person in the country. So we're going to have that conversation today. It's going to be a spicy meatball. So if you can take the heat, all of that is today. And if you want to go deeper today, here's how you do it. Spend $100 today on the show and Rumble Rants, or head to forlibertyshop.com. You'll unlock our mini documentary. If we spend $150, you'll unlock the Great Grift Off. Links are in the description. The show starts now. This is Wake Up America. Rise and freedom. Oh, 'twas on the broad Atlantic in an equinoctial gale that a fine young man went overboard among the shark and whale. Singing, roll, Britannia, Britannia, roll the waves, and Britons never, never, never shall be married to a mermaid. Somebody already hit the grift shop. What is this, my birthday? No, it's America's birthday. Thank you, Jimmy James. You're a good man, JJ. A good man. Got himself a 250th anniversary double-sided American flag. People are going to be so jealous on the 4th of July when you're flying your 250th anniversary double-sided American flag, and they're doing their... You're going to be able to laugh at the peasants with their regular American flags. Look at my beautiful 250th flag. this. The birthday party's broken, and this mess tells the whole story. America turns 250 years old on the 4th of July, and somehow we're fighting like crazy. There was a brief moment during the Trump re-election when I thought maybe this would be different. The national mood was much more positive until we descended back. We had an era of good feelings for about 5 minutes after Trump won, and then we just descended back into our partisan savagery. I blame Liberation Day tariffs. So the official federal commission called America 250, established by Congress in 2016 with $150 million appropriation, has received exactly $25 million of that money, with the rest being potentially redirected to the Trump-aligned parallel operation called Freedom 250. Freedom 250 has done some genuinely cool things. Freedom trucks rolling across 48 states, a spectacular Washington Monument Light Show on New Year's Eve, a Navy fleet review in New York Harbor that's going to be legitimately awesome. So yeah, give me the ships, the lights, the trucks, the flags, and crowds of people who still know the words to the national anthem, and I'm listening, but it's been criticized by historians right, for partnering with PragerU on a so-called Founders Museum, where it's like an exhibit where historical characters repeat the phrase, facts don't care about your feelings, which last I checked was Ben Shapiro's line, not Thomas Jefferson's. So Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence. He didn't record a Daily Wire ad read for Tunnel to Towers. On the other side, the original America 250 Commission, co-chaired by George W. Bush and Barack Obama, they've been running programming designed around, honoring the contributions of all Americans and looking ahead towards the future we want to create. Boring. So what does that mean? I think you know what it means. That means it's like a DEA lecture dressed up in tri-corner hats, and at least one panel discussion probably is going to be called Reimagining the Musket. What do numbers smell like? The best thing I can ever be is to be okay with me. Me. Click the like button. And if today's your first time watching the Wake Up America show, click the follow button as well. So here's where we are. So two rival factions are fighting over the legacy of the American founding. What could be more American than that? One wants to turn the founders into props, and the other wants to turn them into a confession booth. Neither one can accurately tell you what the men actually believed. I want to fix that today because the truth is more interesting than either side's version, and frankly, it's more useful. When you actually read what Jefferson wrote, what Hamilton argued, and what Madison designed, you're going to find something far stronger than some libertarian utopia that doesn't exist, or even a progressive origin myth, right? What you will find is pragmatic, cold, hard, steely, realistic libertarian nationalism. Just speak the speech I pray you, trippingly on the tongue, but if you mouth it as your poor players do, then I'd as lief the town crier spoke my lines. Liberty grounded in civilization, rights rooted in nature, strength in service of freedom. And it's the original American idea. It's hiding in plain sight. It's waiting for somebody to back it up. So we're here. Let's back it up. Back it up. Here's what the founders actually said. And here's why it sort of destroys both sides of the establishments in this debate. Let's start with the document itself, because most people haven't actually read it closely, including many of the people currently being paid to host panels about it with lanyards on. The Declaration of Independence, it opens with one of the most misunderstood lines in the history of Western civilization. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another. One people, not all people, not humanity in the abstract, one people asserting a separate and equal station among the powers of the earth. The Declaration is a specific nation declaring sovereignty over its own affairs. That's nationalism, back when nationalism came with a quill pen and better sentence structure. And then Thomas Jefferson layers the philosophical foundation underneath that declarative statement. We hold these truths to be self-evident. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Rights are not granted by government, they pre-exist government. Government exists only to secure what God already gave you. And that's a libertarian argument. Maybe it's the most powerful libertarian argument ever written, and it was the justification for the national revolution. Jefferson made this even clearer in the year 1774 in his summary view of the rights of British America, writing, "The God who gave us life gave us liberty at the same time. Life and liberty are a package deal handed down by the Creator, not leased to you by a legislature with a renewal fee." And in his private letters, Thomas Jefferson was equally direct about the purpose of law itself. Rightful liberty is unobstructed action according to our will within the limits drawn around us by the equal rights of others. I do not add within the limits of the law, because law is often but the tyrant's will, and always so when it violates the right of an individual. So that sentence, I feel like that should be on the side of every federal building in America. You know, Jefferson, it should be on the side of the government office building wherever they're going to deny your permit for something, right? Jefferson is telling you that unjust law fails a higher standard, right? Natural right against which every act of government must be measured. So, but here's the part that the libertarian fundamentalists skip over because it complicates the bumper stickers, right? John Jay, in Federalist Number 2, called it a blessing that Providence had given America one united people, a people descended from the same ancestors, the same language, professing the same religion. So he was describing the civilizational foundation that made the American Republic possible. James Madison warned in Federalist Number 10 that pure democracies have ever been spectacles of turbulence and contention, have ever been found incompatible with personal security or the rights of property, and have in general been as short in their lives as they have been violent in their deaths. Not too ringing an endorsement for democracy there. Madison designed the entire architecture of the American Republic to prevent a redistributionist majority from seizing control and stripping property rights from the minority. The extended republic, the separation of powers, the filtration of representation, all of it was engineered to protect liberty from mob rule. So Madison looked at direct democracy and basically said, yeah, cute idea. Enjoy the bonfire. Let's burn that bitch. Burn that baby. He's a baby burner. That baby burner. And then Madison's co-author, Alexander Hamilton, he put the whole thing together in Federalist Number 1 with a warning that should send a chill down your spine every time you watch a modern politician speak. He wrote, "A dangerous ambition more often lurks behind the specious mask of zeal for the rights of the people than under the forbidden appearance of zeal for the firmness and efficiency of government. History will teach us that the former has been found a much more certain road to the introduction of despotism than the latter." What is he saying there? Well, Hamilton is telling you in 1787 that the most dangerous tyrants are the ones who claim to be fighting for you. Right? The demagogue who wraps himself in the people's flag is more dangerous than the strong man who admits what he is. Who could that be? That warning came from the past, and it still reads like a user manual for politics today. So what's the synthesis here? Let's put this together. Jefferson plus Hamilton is the original libertarian nationalism, and it's the idea that could save the American Republic today. Here's the argument that the establishment right and the progressive left both need you to never make, because this will collapse their entire political identity. Jefferson, Hamilton, they disagreed about pretty much everything, right? States versus federal, federal power, agrarian versus commercial economy, strict constructionism versus implied powers. Their rivalry is one of the great intellectual dramas of American history. And if it happened today, half of us would be making podcast clips and the other half would be calling for a congressional investigation into their group chat. But they agreed on the things that mattered, okay? There was synthesis here. Jefferson believed that rights are natural, pre-political, and God-given. Hamilton believed that without national strength, those rights cannot be defended. Both of them were right, and neither of them works without the other. Hamilton proved it in Federalist number 11, which is the essay nobody reads, but it actually contains the clearest articulation of what I now call libertarian nationalism that I think's ever been written. Hamilton wrote that the rights of neutrality will only be respected when they are defended by an adequate power. A nation, despicable by its weakness, forfeits even the privilege of being neutral. Under a vigorous national government, the national strength and resources of the country directed to a common interest would baffle all the combinations of European jealousy to restrain our growth. What does that mean? It means that liberty requires strength to survive. Freedom requires a nation willing to defend it. A weak republic becomes prey, waiting to be carved up by whoever wants it, which is, like leaving your wallet on a bar stool and just trusting human nature. Hamilton saw European powers watching America with what he called painful solicitude, already scheming to clip the young nation's wings before it could go strong enough to compete. His answer was, we need commercial strength, we need national unity, and we need a navy that's capable of protecting American trade. Very important. Guess who built the Navy? His opponent, Thomas Jefferson. Because the unequaled spirit of enterprise, which signals kind of signalizes the genius of the American merchants and navigators at this time, in itself they are an inexhaustible mine of national wealth. He worried that they would be stifled and lost if we didn't have the national power to defend them. Right, so this is the Hamiltonian argument that economic liberty and national security are the same project. You cannot have one without the other. So when you put Hamilton's argument next to Thomas Jefferson's, you'll get the complete picture. Jefferson gives you the why of America: natural rights, consent of the governed, limits on state power, the God-given liberty no legislature can revoke. And Hamilton gives you the how: national strength, institutional durability, commercial power, the civilizational muscle required to keep what Jefferson described alive in a world that does not share our views or our values, right? Libertarian nationalism is both of these things running simultaneously. And that is the original American synthesis, the actual governing philosophy of the men who built this country from scratch, right? Before consultants and bureaucrats destroyed this country. This is why this matters at 250 years, right? America right now has the left. They want to use the anniversary to apologize for the founding. And then a lot of people on the right, they just want to perform the founding without understanding it. But the country desperately needs a restoration of the real thing. We need a revival of true Jeffersonianism, true Hamiltonianism. We need Madison's structural genius. We need Jay's civilizational clarity. They belong in the operating system of a republic that's currently being pulled apart by the same factions that Madison warned us about 238 years ago, and that Hamilton himself told us would dress themselves up as champions of the people. The tree of liberty, Jefferson wrote, must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. He was talking about the spirit of resistance, the unwillingness to submit, the refusal to let rulers normalize their abuses against it. Right? That spirit doesn't require a bloody revolution every 20 years as Jefferson wanted, but it does require citizens who know what they're supposed to be defending. And on this show, on the Wake Up America show, and on the For Liberty Network, we know what it means. And on July 4th, 2026, when America turns 250 years old, we here at the For Liberty Network will celebrate, and we understand what we're celebrating well enough to keep that tradition alive. If you haven't already, head over this morning to forlibertyshop.com. Check out our America at 250 Years collection. When you go to forlibertyshop.com this morning, every purchase that you make during the live show goes to help us unlock that bonus content. And we've got some fantastic mini documentaries available for you to unlock whenever you're watching the Wake Up America show. If you sidle on over to forlibertyshop.com during the live show, as some have already done, then every purchase that you make, say a t-shirt with the American flag, or maybe you'd like to get the actual flying flag as Jimmy Joe did this morning, then head over to forlibertyshop.com. And when you make a purchase during this live show that you're listening to right now at 7:28 a.m. Central Time, when you make that purchase during this live show, those dollars add up to unlock a bonus mini documentary for you to watch. So head over to forlibertyshop.com and check out some of the favorites. My favorite personally is the embroidered American flag polo shirt. Byron really loves that one as well over in the chat. He wants to get the white one too. He's got the black one. I'm going to get the white one probably next week. Oh my God, it's so beautiful. Now that I've lost like 18 pounds, I got to lose 18 more. I think I'm going to give this to myself as a gift when I lose another 10. What do you guys say? 10 more pounds down, I'll get the white polo. That way I'm not embarrassed if this summer somebody gives me sprays me if I'm doing like a car wash and somebody sprays me with their hose or I got the wet t-shirt thing going on. Okay, that's probably not going to happen. You can always support the Wake Up America show for free by clicking the like button. 30 minutes until Jeremy Kauffman joins us to talk about why he's running to abolish the Libertarian Party. We think we have endorsed Jeremy Kauffman fully and totally and heartily in that mission. Jeremy Kauffman will be joining us live this morning at 8 a.m. Central Time. Jeremy Kauffman is currently trolling the world right now, but he's serious about running for chair of the Libertarian Party. Tim Pool apparently has also endorsed Jeremy Kauffman for this. And Jeremy is tweeting right now, Tim Pool is the latest endorsement for my candidacy. He says, together, we could end the Libertarian Party forever. Yes. Brian Piotr is in. He says, get a campaign account. We'll send $69 donation. Brian, true patriot. So we're going to talk to Jeremy Kauffman about 30 minutes live from now. If you have things that you have to do this morning and you absolutely need to get it done right now, then you need to be back by 8 a.m. if you want to hear my interview with Jeremy Kauffman. So grab some popcorn, grab some coffee, guys. It's going to be a really wild second hour of the show. Looks like Rumble's being a little glitchy this morning. I'm not sure why. It says 63 viewers waiting, but I don't think they're waiting. Live chat's kind of buggy. Sorry about that, guys. If you're having issues and you're looking for a place to chat, remember there's always the forlibertynetwork.com Discord. If you head to forlibertynetwork.com, that'll redirect you to our Discord, and you can join all of our activists there. That's always a good place to chit-chat, talk about the show, what's happening live. There's a Wake Up America show channel that you can join, so type in forlibertynetwork.com if you're looking for some chat. If the chat is too buggy over on Rumble. Sorry about that, guys. Okay. Oh, gosh, what was I doing there?
For America at a time such as this?
My hope for America?
And how do you personally deal with that?
Yeah, look, I mean, my hope for America is what it's always been. I think it's the hope I hope we all share. We want it to continue to be the place where anyone from anywhere can achieve anything, where you're not limited by the circumstances of your birth, by the color of your skin, by your ethnicity, but frankly, it's a place where you are able to overcome challenges and achieve your full potential. I think that should be the goal of every country in the world, frankly, but I think in the U.S., we're not perfect. Our history is not one of perfection, but it's still better than anybody else's history. And ours is a story of perpetual improvement. Each generation has left the next generation of Americans freer, more prosperous, safer, and that is our goal as well. But it is a unique and exceptional country, and as we come upon this 250-year anniversary, I think we have a lot to learn and be proud of in our history. It is one of perpetual and continuous improvement, where each generation has done its part to bring us closer to fulfilling the vision that the founders of this country had upon its founding. So,
man, damn, I can see why he's now leading as the best potential candidate for president of the United States, at least in the prediction markets. Yesterday, this country got a first real preview there of what 2028 is going to look like. And nobody had to announce a single thing. Marco Rubio went into the White House briefing room. He was like quoting rap artists, Cypress Hill. He was using 2 different languages to tell reporters to F off. And honestly, he looked like a man who was born to run the country, right? J.D. Vance, though, was having a rough time. His first ever trip to Iowa as vice president, standing in a manufacturing plant in Des Moines, talking to farmers about fertilizer costs, sounded like a man who would rather be anywhere else. This is your 2028 Republican primary in embryo right now. The man who wants it and the man who was supposed to want it. Right? So there's a real ideological contest inside the MAGA movement and frankly inside American nationalism itself. See, Rubio's briefing room performance was so good that Harold Ford Jr., a Democrat, went on Fox News and said, frankly, they ought to put him out more. And frankly, I agree. So when a Democrat starts asking Republicans to put your guy on TV more, that's either a compliment or the beginning of a hostage negotiation. Newsmax called him Trump's strongest weapon. But that same afternoon, Rubio 2028 is trending on X while J.D. Vance was flying from a Republican fundraiser in Oklahoma City to Iowa, trying not to take questions from reporters when he landed. So how a man carries himself in public is data. And the data right now is pretty brutal. One guy was looking ready for prime time, and the other looked like his staff had told him the Wi-Fi was down and the press had questions, right? The donors already picked Marco. So at a Mar-a-Lago gathering of roughly 25 major GOP donors, including New England Patriots owner Robert Kraft, Trump himself asked the room to choose between Marco and JD. The room went almost unanimously for Rubio. It was almost unanimous for Marco, said one attendee. That same week, a draft Rubio operation started to quietly take shape behind the scenes. Now, donor consensus is not going to be, obviously, it's not ideological legitimacy. The donors loved Jeb Bush. They loved Mitt Romney. They loved John McCain, right? These people see a grassroots movement and immediately ask whether it can be turned into a lunch meeting with Goldman Sachs. The donors are not your friends, right? So let's run these 2 men through the lens that matters, at least to me, libertarian nationalism. And let's see, and then we'll see who passes and who fails. Let's talk about what matters, right? Nation, family, property, merit, civilization. Whoever's going to be the heir to Donald Trump is going to have to earn it, okay? So let's start with money, because I think this is kind of where the clearest philosophical fault line is. And both of these men have said things that should make a libertarian squirm, like somebody just said public-private partnership, okay? At a Ron Paul barbecue, of all places. That's a great way to get killed. Here's Marco Rubio in his own words on capitalism. He said, our nation does not exist to serve the interests of the market. The market exists to serve our nation and our people. He's called it common good capitalism. A vibrant free market, he says, but one harnessed for national ends. He's pushed industrial policy, called for public-private partnerships to compete with China's Made in 2025 initiative, and he's championed the child tax credit as a way to make work more dignified for families. He's on record saying, you know what big government doesn't hurt? Big corporations. They've got the best lawyers and accountants in the world. That's a really solid line by Rubio. But this is the kind of line that like Chamber of Commerce Republicans are going to like spill their little hotel conference coffees and spit take. Wow, you guys are being super generous in the chat. Thank you, Joel Ledamore. So no, here, but then there's J.D. Vance. In a New York Times interview, he said, I think one of the criticisms that I get from the right is that I am insufficiently committed to the capital M market. Right? He acknowledged that openly. But he said the market is the best way to provision goods and service, but then he called it a tool, not the purpose of American politics. He's praised Lena Khan's FTC. He's an open antitrust warrior, which if we're talking antitrust, remember it was antitrust that destroyed Spirit Airlines recently, created this entire debacle around whether or not JetBlue was going to be able to merge. Lena Khan said no. Then the question was, were we going to have to bail out Spirit Airlines? Thank God the answer was no. And here we are in a mess because of antitrust, right? He's also one of the most skeptical voices on big tech to ever come out of Silicon Valley. And he came out of Silicon Valley. So that's like a vegan emerging from a Texas roadhouse with a meat thermometer and manifestos. So here's the libertarian nationalist read on both of them. Neither is a free market absolutist. It's not how I would do it, but it's fine. The libertarian nationalist tradition does not require libertarian fundamentalism, okay? Markets exist within civilization. Civilization has interests. The dividing line is whether a leader uses the market for national ends or uses national ends as an excuse to expand government. So Rubio's common good capitalism, at least it has a coherent philosophy that's rooted in dignity and production. But Vance's version is more intuitive, and at its worst, it kind of reads like populism in search of a theory, like it's a campaign paper that left its homework in the Uber. Right? When Vance was asked in Pennsylvania to grade the Trump economy, he said A+++, right? Just one fewer plus sign than Trump, right? So that's loyalty performance instead of an economic framework. And Adam Smith did not die a grown man so he could review GDP like a third grader reviewing a pizza party, right? So score this round. Rubio on the capitalism front wins this one by a nose because common good capitalism at least has a foundation in natural rights and family formation, even if it's got Catholic social teaching wrapped around it instead of Thomas Jefferson. So foreign policy. This is where it gets really uncomfortable for both of them and honestly for us, because the Iran war has become a defining test of this administration. And it's turned into the ultimate loyalty trap because 9 weeks in, gas prices are up, fertilizer costs are crushing Iowa farmers, and 64% of Americans say Trump hasn't clearly explained what we're trying to accomplish in the Strait of Hormuz. It's trust me, bro, right? So, but that doesn't qualify as a national security doctrine, right? Rubio has been all in. He was at Mar-a-Lago the night the strikes launched. He's been the most effective public voice for the operation, calling Iran's leaders insane in the brain, quoting Ice Cube, making the case with clarity that nobody else in the cabinet has managed. He comes off as competent. At this point, Rubio's foreign policy briefings probably have a better hip-hop catalog than most NPR producers. He defended Project Freedom, which was the effort to escort commercial ships through the strait right up until Trump paused it. And then hours later, without telling him, Rubio had to have some egg on his face. But he defended it anyway, which tells you something about either his loyalty or his situational awareness, right? Vance is in a different position. Trump himself told reporters that Vance is philosophically a little bit different than me on Iran. So people close to the administration have been saying that Vance was skeptical, worried about success, and quietly opposed. But meanwhile, while Marco Rubio is in the White House quoting rappers and making himself a star, J.D. Vance has had to go sell the war to Iowa farmers whose fertilizer bills have gone vertical. So he's simultaneously the heir apparent and the designated explainer of a war that he never wanted. Ugh, not fun, right? So my doctrine is pretty clear. I've written a libertarian nationalist manifesto. Military intervention is legitimate when American national interests are directly threatened. It is a fact that Iranian mines and international waterways threaten commerce. They threaten our allies. And if we're being serious, they threaten the supply chains that run through the strait, which does serve American markets at times. Rubio's posture is pretty coherent within that framework. He says, you know what's an act of war? Iran putting mines in the water. And I agree with him. That is a defensible argument. Vance's instinct, which is more skeptical of intervention, which is focused on the domestic cost, that is also defensible within a liberty framework. So J.D. Vance's instinct is sound. The failure is his refusal to own it. So he's pretending to support something that he opposed. And if you've never been to Iowa, if you don't understand Iowa, then you don't understand a lot of the American people, because Iowa farmers, they can smell inauthenticity like they can smell manure. They know they can smell, goat, the fine ur. Could that be a bull that I smell? Bullshit. Missouri farmers too. Midwestern farmers don't need a focus group to know when a guy's reading talking points. So Rubio gets the score on this round because he's coherent and he's honestly supporting something that he honestly supports. J.D. Vance is having to be dishonest about something that he doesn't support. and is put in a difficult position. A lot of this is just circumstances that are beyond either of their control, and it just so happens to put the point in Rubio's corner. So, the scorecard, right? So both of these men have transformed in the last 10 years. Transformation, it can be growth or it can be a costume, right? J.D. Vance wrote Hillbilly Elegy. He was a venture capitalist. He worked for Peter Thiel. He called Trump America's Hitler in private messages that came out during his Senate race. But then he became the most prominent MAGA nationalist in the country, which is, quite a journey. Some of us have had that same journey, right? So there's evidence for both intellectual conversion. There's evidence for intellectual conversion he's had, but then also some political calculation. His economics, which is genuinely skeptical of globalism. I think he's genuinely interested in the working class. That all feels very real to me from J.D. Vance. And his foreign policy skepticism also feels real. But when Trump gave the war the thumbs up, Vance muted himself, got on a plane, and started talking to farmers in Iowa about fertilizer. So a man of genuine conviction finds a way to either defend his position or openly disagree. Vance did neither. He performed loyalty. Marco Rubio's transformation is different, but it's also complicated because in 2013, Rubio was in the Gang of Eight immigration reform, which is probably going to be they'll say the biggest albatross in his political career. So this is not a normal millstone. This thing had ankle weights and a LinkedIn profile. So he moved right on immigration hard. He went from immigration reformer to one of the most hawkish enforcers of the Trump's border doctrine. Right? Rubio's change looks closer to growth than Vance's flip on Trump because immigration policy is empirical, right? You look at what happened and then you update your priors. Rubio updated his priors, but Rubio's common good capitalism framework leads somewhere uncomfortable when you pull the thread. So when the government decides which industries deserve protection and which deserve to be sacrificed on the altar of national interest, liberty starts getting replaced by Bernie Sanders-style industrial policy with an American flag on it. Industrial policy is still, with an American flag on it, it's still industrial policy, right? Thomas Jefferson didn't want Hamilton's National Bank, and Hamilton, for all his brilliance, didn't trust people enough. Rubio is more Hamilton than Jefferson, right? That's worth knowing before you crown him for president of the United States. So score this round between J.D. Vance and Rubio, I would say an asterisk. It's a draw with an asterisk on it because Vance's convictions are more libertarian in origin, but Rubio's character is more disciplined in execution. So neither of them is a pure product. Neither is a prodigal son. Right? Both of these men are works in progress. So here's my verdict on this Rubio versus J.D. Vance shadow primary, which has begun. The heir has to be judged by what he can actually carry. I reserve the right to change my mind as the Iran war resolves because I'm a free man and this is America, and I don't have to be locked into one rigid way of thinking. I will speak what I believe in hard words today, though it may contradict everything that I said yesterday. Oh, Austin, you will be misunderstood. Well, is that so bad to be misunderstood? I think you know what I'm saying, Camellia. I reserve the right to change my mind. And as these men are forced to make actual decisions rather than positioning moves, I might change my mind. Right now, with full knowledge of what both men have said and done, in my mind, Marco Rubio is the more compelling candidate through the libertarian nationalist lens. Now, he's not a libertarian. He's probably not going to repeal the income tax, okay? If you're waiting for that, though, you may also be waiting for the TSA to just suddenly magically become efficient and the DMV to suddenly discover excellent customer service. All right, libertarian nationalism, it does not require libertarian fundamentalism. It is liberty in service of civilization, nation, family, property, merit. And Rubio, at his best, has articulated a vision of capitalism that puts family and work and dignity at the center. He understands that the free market is a mechanism, and mechanisms must serve the people who live inside them. His common good capitalism, in my mind, is imperfect, but it does have a moral vocabulary that goes beyond, own the libs and just America first and a bumper sticker. Marco Rubio can explain his views. He can defend his views. I mean, hell, he can defend himself in Spanish, right? So this is kind of like he's kind of like a campaign event in a Super Bowl halftime show in one guy, right? But J.D. Vance, on the other hand, he's the movement's most gifted theorist, but he's a less reliable practitioner. So he sees the problems with clarity. He wrote the diagnosis in Hillbilly Elegy before anybody in D.C. was paying attention, when the country club Republicans were running the show. But the gap between J.D. Vance's diagnosis and his governance is too wide, in my opinion, right? Between his instincts and his performance, right? It's currently measured in flights to Iowa where he's refusing to take press questions. So here's what I keep coming back to when I think about Marco Rubio versus J.D. Vance, right? A GOP strategist in Iowa said that Vance is probably the straw poll winner right now, but then added, I don't think anyone is saying we won't consider anybody else. So that's kind of like, it's like the political version of like, we're seeing other people. Like, we'll go on this date now. We'll pay for dinner, but we're going to keep our options open. So Rubio just walked through the White House briefing yesterday. He charmed the entire country for an hour on live television. In my mind, the 2028 race is already on. The prodigal son hasn't come home yet, but one of them is a lot closer to the front porch than the other, and his name is Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio, Rico Suave. Speaking of Rico Suave, look at this beautiful American son of a...
Treatment first. I will go below the Harbor Freeway tomorrow with her, and we can find some of these people she's going to offer treatment for. She's going to get stabbed in the neck. These people do not want a bed. They want fentanyl or super meth. These ideas cost us over $400 million to house for 70, what did you say? 3,000 people for $400 million? This is absolute failure for both of them. They're a team.
Get him, man. Get him. God bless Spencer Pratt. If you live in Los Angeles, if you're not voting for Spencer Pratt, get out. If you're just tuning in to the Wake Up America show, good morning. 10 minutes until Jeremy Kauffman abolishes the Libertarian Party forever. No. No, wait. 10 minutes until Jeremy Kauffman joins us live on the Wake Up America show. It's going to be a hootenanny hollering. We're going to have a good time. We're going to talk about why Jeremy Kauffman, who is the current chair of the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire, wants to now run for chair of the Libertarian Party of the entire national party and abolish the national party forever. And for this, I say, I wholeheartedly endorse him. If you're just tuning in now to the Wake Up America show, it looks like we're having a little bit glitchy. So we're having like a glitchy morning this morning over on Rumble. So sorry about that, guys. If you can hear me, if it's working for you, let's have a little test. Just drop an American flag down there in the chat if you're on Rumble. Just to see if it's working, I just pulled up the chat. The most recent comment right now is Relaxium McGroin, who says, I just hear the theme song. That's definitely not a good sign. But if you can hear me, if you can see me, Tommy, can you hear me? Can you feel me near you? Drop an American flag in the chat. Well, Peter, there they are. Oh, God, it's working. It's working. Anakin Skywalker. I'm so glad to have people like Jimmy Joe Patty, Murtek, Byron Norris, Cecilia, your beautiful baby going to be born. Congratulations. Colton for Liberty, BB for Liberty. Relaxium McGroin. Groin's feeling very relaxed. Thanks, guys, so much. Siggy's mom, she's got it going on. She says Rumble's working on the laptop, but not on the tablet. Yeah, they're having a little bit of challenges this morning. Thank you, guys, for unlocking. We're halfway to unlocking the bonus content. Thank you so much for getting us this far. Just an FYI, we're $52 raised towards the bonus content. So now would be a great time to head to forlibertyshop.com. And every purchase that we make during the live show will help to unlock that sweet, sweet bonus content. Right, Steve Dace Fan 31? Look at that gift in those subs. Dace Fan got himself a subscription. Misha Swisky's here as well. Misha, I've just enjoyed so much getting to meet you recently and having you in our little sphere of influence. Jennifer Halbine, the great, the powerful. Now listen, guys, I'm sticking with America. I'm not going anywhere. I've planted my flag and I'm staying right here. Today, I'm going to talk to my good buddy Todd, not on the show, but later after the show, about his move to Panama, which he just got tired of the tyranny of the American federal government and didn't want to pay the income tax anymore. And you know what? God bless it. I get it. I get it. I understand. Don't turn and run, though. You traitor. No, I totally understand. I get it. I don't think that the good guys should be leaving the United States. I think that the good guys should leave California and come to Missouri, come to the red states. But what are we going to do if the Democrats come in and start arresting everybody that ever voted for Donald Trump? You know they're going to try. You know they're going to do. So maybe it is a good idea to have a plan B, and that's why I'm proud to sponsor with our friends over at Expat Money. Do you really want to be responsible for the bad decisions that the Democrats are going to make if they take over? I get it, right? If you want to think through what international options might be available to you, completely legal, before a crisis comes, think about second residencies, global diversification of your assets. I think about that all the time. Freedom strategy. How do I diversify my assets, not just here in the United States, but is there a way to do that internationally? Can I get me one of them accounts in the Caymans like Mitt Romney had? I want one. Why should that be for only rich people? If your stockbroker is only telling you about American stocks, then maybe it's time to start thinking bigger. Maybe it's time to start thinking Argentina. If you're looking at Argentina because of Javier Milei, then you need to go to expatmoney.com/Austin. That's expat, E-X-P-A-T, expatmoney.com/Austin, and download their free brochure. There you go. Okay, it's time. We haven't unlocked the bonus content yet, but we're getting really close, guys. If you hit the bonus content during the commercials, then I will flip it over for you guys. So instead of commercials, you can watch the mini documentary. So keep those Rumble rants and gift subs going. Head to forlibertyshop.com. When we get back, we're talking to Jeremy Kauffman about why it's time to abolish the Libertarian Party forever. "'Tis the year of our Lord, 1801. President Trump Jefferson casts his gaze o'er the sovereign Potomac and beholds a most wretched spectacle upon the waters. From the cursed shores of Tripoli and the welfare coffers of distant Minnesota comes the brazen Captain Ilhan Omar, commanding her fleet of Barbary pirates. She demands her ransom, billions in reparations. Yet one instrument of fortitude suffices, a steaming chalice of Jeffersonian Java, bold and unapologetic from For Liberty Shop. No more tribute to rogues, he thunders, and dispatches the Navy and Marines to smash Omar's fleet asunder. Trump Jefferson stands triumphant as Omar's plunder meets the end it deserved back in Minnesota. Jeffersonian Java, the coffee that gives true Americans the courage to refuse tribute and rebuke fraud. Procure yours at forlibertyshop.com and make America caffeinated again." George Washington spent 8 years making sure nobody knew where he was. Troop movements, secret dispatches. The man was a ghost. So when a barista leaned out a window and asked for his exact location in exchange for points they called stars, he looked at his flag and said, "I've already got my stars. 13 of them." Keep your dignity and your location intact. Grab a box of Washington's Revolutionary Roast at forlibertyshop.com.
In a city where businesses never sleep, the technology still crashes. When technology turns criminal, they send up the signal. He's not a myth, and he's definitely not your nephew who knows computers. He installs, he protects, he backs it up, he keeps your business online and out of trouble. Managed IT, security, cloud, support that actually answers the phone. Layer 8 tech. When your network breaks, he wakes. Call Drew before your tech needs a rescue signal.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back. With sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
Thanks for sticking around. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show, and that's on the For Liberty Network. There are 5 live shows on this Liberty Network and more to come. We believe in liberty, but is it time to abandon the experiment that is the Libertarian Party? Jeremy Kauffman is a blockchain entrepreneur. He is the chairman of the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire, which is the same state party that the National LP formally censured last September, and they invited them to disaffiliate entirely. Jeremy Kauffman endorsed Donald Trump in 2024 over Chase Oliver. He's called the National Party leadership woke neoliberal globalists, which is far kinder than I would have called them. And he's argued that libertarians in New Hampshire are no longer dissidents. They're on track to become the libertarian ruling class. Jeremy Kauffman, welcome back to Wake Up America. Good to see you again.
It's great to be talking to you as always, and it was excellent to meet you in person recently when you came out to the great state of New Hampshire. So you have a little bit of knowledge about what's going on here and how great it is.
I do, and congratulations on your success so far, getting people to move to the free state, and I really loved the vibe of the crowd out there. There are a lot of people who are very irritated that you and I are talking, Jeremy, but I think it's because they're seeing that there's a lot of excitement and interest around these ideas. I'm getting booked on more podcasts than I've been since I ran for president because people are really curious. There seems to be a lot of pent up demand for libertarians who aren't, psychopath, Looney Tunes, trans the kid. What do you call them? Woke neoliberal globalists. So
we're the gay race, communist, libertarians, whatever term you want to use. So okay, look, think about the selection effects of who ends up in the Libertarian Party, because the libertarian philosophy is great. Okay, I've read all the books. I agree with the vast majority of the libertarian greats. Of course, they don't always agree with each other, but there's wonderful ideas there. Okay, if you look at surveys, if you look at actual data, 9 out of 10 people who are small L libertarians based off of their policy positions are inside of the Republican Party. It's only about 1 out of 10 who are inside of the Libertarian Party. And there's basically none in the Democratic Party, by the way. There's almost 0. And so what selects who ends up in the Libertarian Party? You end up with people who are woke, who are universalist, who are progressive, who are left-wing, because there's something about their disposition, their personality, and that's why they end up there. And so we have this 1/10 that doesn't represent the base of libertarians in America, having sort of driving the reputation of libertarianism. And, not only has the LP not accomplished anything, it's damaged the libertarian movement. It's made the libertarian movement worse because you have some of the worst people, determining, setting the understanding, because it's right there in the name, the Libertarian Party.
Okay, so you're the current chair of the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire. They elected you that despite the fact that you didn't even endorse the presidential nominee in the last election. So it seems as if people are a lot less concerned about maybe ideological purity or a devotion to the party itself. Do you think that same energy that's kind of a rebellion within a rebellion? Do you think that same energy can propel you from the chair of the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire to the National Libertarian Party chair? I mean, can it happen?
I think we've got a chance, judging by some of the online reception. I'm not counting my chickens. I wouldn't take it as a given, but I think this idea needs to be introduced. We will make the case at convention, which is just in a couple of weeks in Grand Rapids. We've got a whole slate coming together of people. So it's not just going to be New Hampshire folks. We've got a whole slate coming together of people who are done with this, who don't want this party to exist anymore. And it's not because we're not libertarians, but it's because we're sick of the Libertarian Party holding back the libertarian movement. It basically convinces people to throw their time away, throw their money away, to accomplish nothing. Again, it is shocking. People don't realize how incredibly unsuccessful the Libertarian Party has been. And I can understand believing the idea in the abstract, right? Like I can understand the idea making sense, but we have to update with results, right? You have beliefs, but then you collect data, then you collect evidence, and you update your beliefs based off of what you experience and what you see. The Libertarian Party has never won a competitive election. Never. In its entire existence. It has never won a statewide race against both a Republican and a Democrat. Not a single time. Why would you continue to do this? And so what they do is they go around and they basically lie to people, right? All of these candidates, all of these other people, they're saying, oh, we can win. No, you can't. No, you can't. You literally cannot. You are pushing for something that is not just unlikely, but impossible. It is not possible. And so, they just got to get out of the way. Okay, they've got to stop setting the libertarian movement back. Small L libertarians can go get in the Republican Party, and honestly, the Chase Oliver types, while I'm not fans, would immediately be the best Democrats in the country. Right, like Chase Oliver would be the best Democrat in America. I have no problem saying that.
So instead of stop being terrible libertarians and start being great Republicans and great Democrats.
That's right. That's right. That's what's happened in New Hampshire. We have 100 libertarians elected here as Republicans. Multiple people we have 2 former chairs of the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire in office as Republicans. We have multiple former executive committee members in office as Republicans, and we have multiple lifetime members of the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire in office as Republicans. So this idea that the Republican Party won't welcome libertarians. Now, I can't speak for every state, but in New Hampshire, they've been very welcoming.
Now, the controversy around the Libertarian Party in the last election was the fact that many libertarians were swayed by Donald Trump appearing at the national convention, asking directly for the support of libertarians, which was a historic event. And I think many libertarians were convinced by that. Now, there has been a marked change in the attitude and behavior towards Donald Trump since he was elected. There have been things that libertarians have disagreed with greatly. The Iran war, obviously, the fact that Doge didn't get to accomplish what we wanted to accomplish. There was no libertarian in the cabinet. Still, Trump has done more libertarian stuff than any president since Ronald Reagan. And I think, I've quantified that in podcasts and in writing for years that libertarians refuse to engage with, because whenever I show up to convention, half the room walks out. And then when I get criticized, like I have a call with a friend last night, and he's angry that I'm talking to you. And then I said, have you read the manifesto? No. Have you heard any of the conversations between me and Jeremy? No. Have you? Did you listen to the interview that Jeremy Kauffman and I did last week? No. So these people, they're refusing to engage with our ideas, Jeremy, which makes them like worse than just kind of useless. They're actually working against the cause of liberty in a way, because they refuse to engage with our ideas.
That's right. Look, there's around 10 years ago, when the Free State movement was in a different era, there was a libertarian, guy here who burned a lot of his own personal money to get a couple percent of the vote. And, he went around touting that he got the Republican to lose. Okay. Now I can understand this strategy. But again, we have to be evidence-based. We have to okay. So his argument 10 years ago was, I'm going to show, then they're going to have to come to us. They're going to have to earn our vote. Okay. It's 10 years later. His strategy is to do the same exact thing. He wants to run again in 2026, dump a bunch of his personal money into a campaign just to make a Republican lose because they're, quote, not good enough. And it's like, this doesn't work. If there's something that libertarians are supposed to be better at than everyone else in the world, it's economics. What's the foundation of economics? The idea of marginality, right? Okay. Apply this thinking to politics. Okay, apply marginal thinking to politics. All right. If you apply this kind of thinking, then, and this is what I do think free staters tend to think this way, you take every possibility to marginally advance any way you can towards your goal. This idea that things will get so bad that people will wake up, that we can somehow produce libertarianism by making things worse. It's not real. It does not happen. Okay, people do not understand what's going on. There's no history of this happening. It's a made-up idea that makes you feel comfortable being a loser. All right. What libertarians need to do is march the ball down the field any way they can, at every inch they can take. Okay. When your side when the Republicans are doing stuff that's bad, and of course the Republicans do stuff that's bad. It's like people can't fit the idea that Donald Trump is the most libertarian president in my lifetime, and he does non-libertarian things all the time. Like people can't put both.
Yeah, of those, they can't. It has to be either or. But there's also this kind of like dismissiveness that libertarians have towards actual genuine politicking too. And I've changed my mind on several things over the last 20 years that I've been doing this. And one of the things that I've changed my mind on specifically is what I call like the great libertarian lie that everybody believes. If you tell a lie big enough, then everybody will believe it. And the libertarian lie is that the two parties are the same. This concept of a uniparty, which is a kind of a one-shot brain rot. Because, Jeremy, you posted, I think, a chart recently about the difference in votes on libertarian issues between Republicans and Democrats in New Hampshire, didn't you?
That's right. And in New Hampshire, so New Hampshire is a shockingly large state house. We have over 400 people in our state house. Every single Republican, something like 210 of them, 220 of them, was better than every single Democrat, according to the Liberty scoring. So we have this great organization called the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance, nhliberty.org. They have been meticulously scoring votes on every bill from the libertarian position. And this organization is also run by small L. Well, some of them are lifetime Libertarian Party members. Some of them are disgruntled former libertarians. They're very meticulous. Their votes are very good. I agree with their position 98+% of the time on what the libertarian position would be. And they've scored everyone. And you see the same thing nationally, I believe, that basically it might not be strictly that every Republican is better, but nearly every Republican is better than nearly every Democrat. And so Again, we have to be evidence-based. There are differences between the parties. Now, are Republicans good enough? Absolutely not. But this idea of these people, I have a rule that anyone who says libertarians are neither left nor right is left-wing. These people who tend to think that there's no differences, they're almost always left-wing people, psychologically and in their hearts.
Yeah, for sure. And even some people who think themselves to be right libertarians will frequently get caught up in sort of woke thinking by mistake, with where it's kind of like there's this overemphasis on Gaza or Israel or Palestine that becomes this kind of derangement that is very intersectional in its reasoning, right? Frequently you'll have people who will commit moral blackmail and say, well, what about the babies that Trump is killing in Gaza? Well, fuck Gaza. I don't care about Palestinian babies. I don't care about Palestinians at all. I don't care about there's this internationalist desire to have a libertarian universalism that I can understand and sympathize with the idea that all humans have universal individual rights granted to us perhaps by a creator. That might be the case, but you don't get those rights if your entire life project is to destroy us and destroy our nation. That just happens to be my perspective on the thing. I'm not overly concerned about foreign policy as much as many libertarians are, but I do think that there was a problem, especially in the last election, where the Mises Caucus people put forth a former Marxist professor because he was properly JQ'd, and it didn't matter what any of his other economic things were. But that convinced me right there that it really was time to shut the project down, because whether it's gay race communists on one side or whether it's the JQ people on the other side, the Libertarian Party is bad for the brand, but it's also a scam because it takes money from people who have no idea that they're wasting their time or their energy or their money. Now 1 second, Jeremy. We talked about the why. Let's talk about how you're going to abolish the Libertarian Party. Structurally, how will your takeover then activate the destruction of the party? Will it destroy the state parties as well or not?
So my intent is to leave the state parties alone. My understanding, I'm still getting up to speed on all this, but my understanding is that the best way to do it would actually be to do it at convention as an amendment of the bylaws, which would take a 2/3 vote. And I certainly will be making a motion to do that. If we don't have the votes to do it that way, we will be running someone for every single position on the Libertarian National Committee, which is the governing body. So we can win with just a majority there. If we control the LNC, we will sort of unwind the Libertarian Party if we can. If that's not legally possible to do it strictly via the LNC, then we will do nothing. We will not run a candidate for office. We will not run a candidate for president. We will not be attempting to engage in politics at all. If individual states want to continue to operate, I'm not trying to take their party away from them. But the National Libertarian Party, the National Libertarian Party isn't helpful to the state parties, right? The Libertarian, all the different Libertarian state affiliates, they appear to spend most of their time fighting with each other. They kind of know that they can't win elections, right? That's part of why this stuff has become so destructive, right? Everyone knows they can't win. Every single person who's involved in the Libertarian Party, there's some part of them inside of themselves. They know that they can't win. And that's why all of these people just play theater politics against each other over the almost inconsequential entity that is the Libertarian Party, right? That they're not actually trying to, it's funny because New Hampshire gets attacked all the time, that we're not winning elections or whatever. It's no one's winning elections. We're at least actually popular. At least people like what the New Hampshire Libertarian Party has to say online. And these people just want to attack us with it because it's all this theater politic game for all of these people to capture this inconsequential entity, this Libertarian Party. So, the state parties, and I'll be pushing and recruiting for, all the various state entities who have had national be a problem for them, because it's not just New Hampshire. There are lots of different state affiliates who have had, national be in the way. There are lots of different state affiliates who are disappointed in the terrible candidates that the Libertarian Party continues to put out, and having these people drive perception of the understanding of what the libertarian movement is.
How will the abolishing of the Libertarian Party the Libertarian Party National, how will that affect the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire, of which you are currently the chair right now? Will you dissolve your state party as well?
That's a good question. So one of the things that I want to understand is I don't want these people to come back, and they want the Libertarian Party so they can make libertarianism this leftist, universalist, woke kind of ideology, rather than this what's actually a legal theory rooted in property rights. Libertarian is a theory of law, and they want all of these other things to be to be brought into libertarianism. And so I want to make sure that they can't do that, right? It's unfortunate, even in New Hampshire, politics is so messed up in America. They force democracy on you, right? So in New Hampshire, it's not even possible under state law for us to not run candidates. If someone, we at convention, we had a vote. There's, again, this guy who wants to run under the Libertarian Party, and I'm not even going to give him attention by saying his name. The same guy I mentioned who wants to take his money and make the Republican lose. Our party voted something like 80-10 for NODA rather than endorse him for Senate. But we can't stop him. If he goes out and collects 10,000 signatures or whatever it is and says, I'm the Libertarian Party candidate, he's on the ballot as a Libertarian. And I think this is so messed up. So I'm continuing to do legal research. I'm putting a website together with an actual plan. I only decided to run for chair 3 days ago, but but despite that, I am taking it very seriously. Okay, I'm a smart guy and get up to speed on things very quickly. So I'm getting up to speed on all of this very quickly, finding out the best strategy. But the goal is to stop letting the Libertarian Party damage the perception of libertarianism in the popular eye. Let's let libertarianism be defined by the best Republicans, by people like Lee and Massey and Paul and all of these, and all of these people. And of course, the podcasters. Of course, we have to let the podcasters.
They're going to have their say too, Jeremy, for sure.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Well, I just, I want to see you succeed. I think that you're right. It's time. I think, people could accuse me of, sour grapes because I ran in 2016 and didn't win the nomination. And I think, that could be a fair criticism, right? Part of the reason why I look at this, everybody's going to look at things from their own personal point of view. And my belief was then, and why I left the Libertarian Party shortly after, is that the party, what I realized is that there isn't even a serious desire to win. And the reason why I believe that is because when people would win who were like libertarian or libertarian adjacent in the major parties, they get very uncomfortable. So, for example, Jeremy, we had a guy who, when I went to Denver last year to speak to the Libertarian Party of Colorado, half the delegation walked out, refused to listen. And there was this young man named James Wiley, and he was very inspired by the speech. He read my manifesto about libertarian nationalism. He quits the GOP, he quits the LP, joins the GOP, runs for office statewide, wins the nomination of the Republican Party for Secretary of State. And then it all starts this melee because the libertarians are attacking him so much harder than and me for supporting him than I've ever seen them attack people who are actual authoritarians. They spend more time attacking him than they spend attacking Lindsey Graham in some ways. So it's like what you realize, Jeremy, is that the success of people like Javier Milei or James Wiley or people in New Hampshire or have you, that it embarrasses them because the scam is on the Libertarian Party's part that they can continue to take money and resources without having to do anything. But if there are people out there who actually have to win, then one, they have to do something, and two, they have to change their bullshit strategies that they're running and their plays that they're running right now. So winning is actually a problem for the Libertarian Party, which is why it has to die, in my mind. Would you agree with that analysis?
Well, yeah, look, a lot of the libertarians, and you're right that it's even some of the Mises caucus types, although not all of them, and some of them are very good, very fine people. But they have what you might call, what Nietzsche would call slave morality. They only can exist in opposition to things. They have no positive vision. They don't want to be masters. They can only exist against the frame of the master in sort of Nietzschean terms. And so that's it. They can only be against. It's the only thing they know how to do. They don't know how to have a positive vision. They don't know how to build anything. They don't know how to create anything. And so that psychology or morality is going to play out in all of their interactions. And of course, this is what you see, and it's why the party is so full of, quote, loser types.
Yeah. I wish you the best, Jeremy. I think that this is a noble quest. I think it is a worthwhile quest. I endorse you completely and totally for the role of Libertarian Party chair for the purpose of abolishing. Get your ass up there to Mount Doom. Take the ring of retardation and throw it into the fire, Jeremy. Is there anything else that we missed on this topic or anything that you think is important for our audience to know about this before we let you go?
It's important for your audience to visit New Hampshire and hang out with the best Libertarian Party in the country, the only one that's decent, the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire. And then also I've got an AI agent working on endthelp.com, which I bought 40 minutes ago. And we're going to be putting up a website with endorsements and a real plan. And all this is actually, coming together. So we're going to be making a real run at this in a couple of weeks. I hope to see allies in Grand Rapids, and I'll be making the case to the body then.
That sounds good, Jeremy. Good luck. Godspeed. God bless New Hampshire.
Cheers.
To enforce the existing sanctuary laws everywhere, so we don't have crazy cowboys taking the law into their own hands.
Tell that to a crazy mother who lost her child.
Sir, I don't need any lectures from you about being a mother.
Of course, you might.
Okay.
Yeah, boy. Wait, look at her face. Hold on. Look at her face right there. Katie Porter with that. Look at that. Oh, you might. Boom.
You might.
You might.
Okay.
Ooh. Telling her how to mother. Oh, we're talking about mothers. We're talking about mothers. You want to talk about mothers? Oh. Let's talk about immigration, because that doesn't divide people. A Gallup poll just dropped showing the global desire to move to the America has hit its lowest point in 20 years. The left is calling it an indictment of Trump's enforcement. The right is calling it a win. Both are skipping the most important question in the whole debate, and JD Too Chilly of Reason Magazine is going to be here to ask it. We'll be right back. This is the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network. Our Lord, 1801, President Trump Jefferson casts his gaze o'er the sovereign Potomac and beholds a most wretched spectacle upon the waters. From the cursed shores of Tripoli and the welfare coffers of distant Minnesota comes the brazen Captain Ilhan Omar, commanding her fleet of Barbary pirates. She demands her ransom, billions in reparations. Yet one instrument of fortitude suffices, a steaming chalice of Jeffersonian Java, bold and unapologetic from For Liberty shop. No more tribute to rogues, he thunders, and dispatches the Navy and Marines to smash Omar's fleet asunder. Trump Jefferson stands triumphant as Omar's plunder meets the end it deserved back in Minnesota. Jeffersonian Java, the coffee that gives true Americans the courage to refuse tribute and rebuke fraud. Procure yours at forlibertyshop.com and make America caffeinated again. George Washington spent 8 years making sure nobody knew where he was. Troop movements, secret dispatches. The man was a ghost. So when a barista leaned out a window and asked for his exact location in exchange for points they called stars, he looked at his flag and said, "I've already got my stars. 13 of them." Keep your dignity and your location intact. Grab a box of Washington's Revolutionary Roast at forlibertyshop.com.
In a city where businesses never sleep, the technology still crashes. When technology turns criminal, they send up the signal. He's not a myth, and he's definitely not your nephew who knows computers. He installs, he protects, he backs it up, he keeps your business online and out of trouble. Managed IT, security, cloud, support that actually answers the phone. Layer 8 tech. When your network breaks, he wakes. Call Drew before your tech needs a rescue signal.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back. With sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that at the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us.
Thanks for sticking around. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show on the For Liberty Network, the most relevant libertarian live show in the United States today. It's time to wake up and rise in freedom. JD2 Chili is a contributing editor at Reason Magazine. He covers government overreach and threats to everyday liberty. I read his column every single time it comes out. He just published a piece arguing America's losing its allure for the world's migrants at the exact moment that it is outperforming every other economy on Earth. So the Gallup numbers are real and the economic irony is real. The argument inside the data is where it gets complicated. Because the same institutions that are citing this research to kind of make the case against enforcement have some explaining to do about how they're running the numbers. JD2 Chili is here, but first we're going to ask him about the Libertarian Party. JD, it's worst party ever, can we say? Like, I've been to some boring, crappy parties in my life, but I've been to grandma's parties that were more fun.
I think I would say the Prohibition Party was the worst.
Okay,
party,
yeah, the temperance parties. Okay,
yeah.
At least the libertarians have drugs and alcohol.
there is that, yeah.
JD, should we abolish the Libertarian Party?
Well, I mean, in terms of pulling the plug on it, I think that would not be a terrible thing. It had its opportunity. I think I liked the idea. I have voted Libertarian frequently, but the fact that it did not break through when I think that a real opportunity came in the mid-2010s I think that's kind of the last shot at the brass ring for the time being. That doesn't mean there can't be a libertarian party, but the one that exists right now has been a mess for years. It's been suffered from factional infighting. You had a power grab that was then repelled. I think pulling the plug on it, putting it out of its misery, and trying something else might be the way to go.
Honestly, JD, I completely agree. I've endorsed Jeremy Kauffman for this. People are going to accuse me of sour grapes because Gary Johnson beat me and threw my gun in the trash in 2016. But I'm not bitter. No, I just want to say that I think that I feel as if a lot of people kind of get scammed because they think they're libertarians, and so they go down to the ballot box and they pull it for a libertarian, and they have no idea that the guy that they're voting for or the people that they might be, God help them, donating to or doing door knocking for don't have any opportunity to accomplish anything near what they promise. And at some point when you're making promises like, oh, we're going to win, or oh, we're going to make the Democrats or Republicans pay, and it doesn't pan out, you're kind of scamming people, right?
Well, I don't know that it's scamming. It's that you're raising expectations that can't be met. And the sad thing is, we're in a moment when I find the major parties as repulsive as I've ever found them. I'm 60 years old, and we've got a Democratic Party that's becoming increasingly socialist and anti-Semitic, and a Republican Party that is a cult of personality flirting with fascism. I'm not even registered to vote at the moment because I can't stomach the idea of voting for them, and there isn't really an alternative on the ballot right now. So we need an alternative to what are becoming increasingly bad major parties, but the Libertarian Party, as currently constituted, I think is not going to be it. It's tainted, it's a mess. And maybe something else should be tried along the lines of landing a ballot spot for pro-liberty candidates.
I agree, JD, and interesting point of view. Now, a lot of this probably is our relative positions on this planet and our view of that planet from our positions. I mean, you're a hard-ass desert anarchist. I'm a sweet, kind Missouri peculiar boy, maybe a little bit softer than you all. But I have developed a new way forward, which I call libertarian nationalism. I see what you're saying with the cult of personality and the flirting with fascism, which is why I think that we need a libertarian nationalist movement on the right to blunt the edges of authoritarianism that might be coming if we didn't. But also when you see the election results in Ohio and Vivek Ramaswamy trouncing his ethno-nationalist opponent, 80% of conservative Christian Republicans voting for a Hindu libertarian nationalist in a Republican primary, it does give you pause and wonder if there isn't a lane of people in this country who love America, who don't think America is the greatest terrorist nation on this earth, who don't think we should be tearing down statues of Thomas Jefferson or even Robert E. Lee, for God's sakes, and that there's this kind of this third lane that you can occupy as someone who believes as a libertarian like I do, that the experiment that the founding fathers and my ancestor as Isaac Wade, I joined the Sons of the American Revolution recently on his name, but they fought for something that was a libertarian nation in many ways. It wasn't perfect. Yeah, we had slavery, but in some ways, JD, you have to look at the stain of slavery and Thomas Jefferson to say, yeah, his legacy was greater than slaves. Yeah, he owned slaves, but there are more important things. It's not to say that, how are you going to look somebody in the left in the face, JD, and say, I think your 1619 project is bullshit. I supported Clarence Thomas overthrowing the Voting Rights Act. You shouldn't be able to draw minority districts. And then they call you racist, and you could say, okay, well, I'm not a Democrat. I'm going to be a Republican now, and I'm a libertarian nationalist. Is there a way forward for that in that very narrow lane, JD?
Well, I would like to. I find Ramaswamy's victory to be encouraging. I certainly would rather see a GOP that's Ramaswamy friendly than one that's James Fishback friendly. That's a more positive, route forward through Ramaswamy. And if that could be a path forward, then I think that's something that would be encouraging. That would be a sign that there's at least a voice for liberty in the Republican Party. So yeah, there is a path forward for that. Whether that is going to beat out the ethno-nationalists in the end, I don't know. But the battle is obviously ongoing, and that was an encouraging development.
Now, JD, I flatter you every time you come on here, but it is true that I do read every article that you write over at Reason. I find you to be sort of the most level-headed of libertarians over there, and I would hope you would do me the honor to read the Libertarian Nationalist Manifesto. It's 9 pages. I know people are busy, but I would actually deeply appreciate you engaging with it, because I think there are some ideas in there, maybe not everything you agree with, but I would love to hear your thoughts on that. I'll send you a copy of that after the show, and read it, don't read it. I'm not a cop, but it's up to you. Let's talk about immigration, because JD, I have to say honestly, I think I'm starting to change my mind away from the typical Cato Reason view of immigration. And I'd like to discuss that in the background of your article that you wrote, where you talk about Gallup, the poll that shows that the desire to permanently move to America has dropped from 24% in 2007 to 15% today. Now, a lot of Republicans were kind of celebrating that because they've been trying to do that, accomplish that goal for years. So make the case. So why should Americans who support border enforcement care about that number at all?
Well, one of the cases, if you just want to talk from a nationalist point of view, is that immigrants do contribute to the United States. For instance, the projections with declining interest in migrating to the U.S. and with immigrants leaving the U.S. is that the GDP is going to be hit. It's not going to grow by as much. It's going to lose about 0.25% of its value. So it's not that, despite the claims of some, immigrants are not a net drain on the U.S. They're a net contribution to the U.S. They contribute more in taxes than they consume overall, and they also contribute to the bottom line. Think about how many companies have been started by immigrants, how many hard workers are immigrants, how many industries rely upon immigrants for labor, for workers overall. And the thing is, there isn't a path for legal immigration. I mean, we keep on talking about it's okay if people would just wait and do it legally, except that since the 1920s, the U.S. has largely closed off almost all avenues for legal immigration to the U.S. Fewer than 1% of people who want to immigrate to the United States legally are accepted by the United States. There's a reason why people cross the border illegally, and it's because there is not a legal path. You'll hear about legal immigrants. Those are usually family members or they bought their way in, which is nice. I'm glad that some are able to get here. But there's less than 1%.
But there's a problem. So the Cato Institute study that you cited in your piece, it says that immigrants generated a 14.5 trillion fiscal surplus over 30 years. But the problem is, JD, is that lumped legal and illegal immigrants together into a single pool. But when the National Academy of Sciences ran 8 separate fiscal scenarios specifically isolating the immigrant costs, guess what? All 8 of them showed a net drain. So why does the legal versus illegal distinction matter so much, and why does Cato keep blurring that distinction? It feels deliberate.
Well, it is deliberate because Cato doesn't care about the legal-illegal distinction. Neither do I, for that matter. When there is not a path for legal immigration and you want to examine immigrants overall, you have to look at the illegal immigrants. And the fact is that many of the hardworking immigrants we look at in the community, the ones working for chicken processing plants, the ones working in fields, came here illegally because they could not find a legal path. Sometimes they're able to legalize later on, but again, less than 1% can find a legal path to be admitted to the United States. So if you only look at legal immigrants, you're looking at a tiny pool that's unrepresentative of the immigrant population. Most had to come here illegally.
JD, no offense, but my bullshit meter is starting to go off here, because the problem is, and this is the specific mechanism that I need you to respond to, because I'm still warring this over in my mind. When an illegal immigrant has a U.S.-born child, that child's welfare costs, their education costs, their lifetime government expenditures, that gets booked under the native-born American column in Cato's model, not the immigrant column. So Cato is offloading a massive cost category onto the native ledger it feels like, to make the immigrant ledger look clean. Is that a fair characterization of this methodology? And does that change the headline?
I don't believe it changes the headline, but you're right that a U.S. citizen who is born to an illegal immigrant, being a U.S. citizen, is then counted in the native ledger because they are native.
That's dishonest. That's dishonest.
The U.S. has birthright citizenship. If you're born here, you are a U.S. citizen. There are interesting downsides to that in terms of citizenship tourism. But by and large, you're looking at people who are, I mean, not by and large, you're looking at people who are Americans. I mean, they were born in the United States, and the U.S. established a long time ago that it has birthright citizenship. It has always recognized people born here as American citizens. That's not something that Cato made up.
I think immigration can be a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing. And I think the problem is that Cato and Reason being so specifically focused on a single policy determinant and being unable to sort of steelman the other side, it really is the kind of thing that gives people like myself pause. And I think has really turned a lot of people against Cato, because Alex Nowrasteh, for example, he's out there comparing immigrant incarceration rates to native-born Americans as a whole. Cato's own papers acknowledge that the gap largely disappears when you account for the fact that black native-born Americans have a significantly elevated incarceration rate. So when you control for demographics, the headline finding gets a lot murkier. So how do you evaluate that criticism?
Well, you evaluate that criticism by recognizing that black native-born Americans are native-born Americans. Now, is there a problem in the African-American community related to crime? And
you can piece out illegals, but you can't piece out Americans. I mean, demographically, we can piece out illegals, but why can't we piece that out when we look at Americans? They may be they may be Americans, JD, but it feels like a sort of sleight of the hand. Can you understand why people would feel that way?
I understand why people want to parse out the children of immigrants, except that being born here, you are an American. And yes, we do have different numbers in different communities in the United States. This is a country of 340 million people. Those people do not perform identically across the population. There are differences between urban populations, between ethnic populations. But you'll find, by and large, that the children of immigrants contribute disproportionately. That is why the economy takes a hit when immigrants leave the U.S. and take themselves, their contributions, and their children with them back to their home countries. We do take a hit to the GDP when they leave. I repeat, there's not a path. There's not a path for legal immigration.
I get it. I mean, there is a path, but it's just extremely wide. Elon Musk can still get in the country.
Yes, Elon Musk can.
Yes, your piece makes the economic argument for immigration in terms of workers and consumers. So you say immigrants work more hours, they pay more in taxes than they draw on benefits, they contribute to GDP growth. Okay, that's fine. That argument is strongest for legal, skilled, and working age immigrants. But does it hold equally for low-skilled, low-education, illegal immigrant population who are the primary driver of the 2021 to 2024 Biden surge?
For low-skilled, it can hold. However, if you're talking about, if you want to steelman an argument, if we start having a lot of immigrants coming here who are sick, disabled, elderly, unable to work because they see an opportunity, say, to get treatment, medical care that they don't have in their home countries, but they don't plan on producing, then you have a problem. You would also have a problem if you had 100,000 say working age men crossing the border simultaneously, but it's pretty clear it's a brigade of somebody's army. That would be a problem. So yeah, there has to be, if you just go to a pure open borders model, in a world of easy transit, I can see that there are significant potential problems with people crossing the border who are not potential workers, but are just as a group of potential drain or a direct threat to the national security of the country. Well, basically an army and civilian clothing.
Well, but I mean, well, the problem that I had, the things that, my niggling doubts on the Cato version of immigration began when I would read Brian Kaplan and I would read Sheikha Dalmia, and I know she doesn't identify as a libertarian anymore, but I know that the institutions still heavily, support her in some ways. And she wrote specifically that there should be reasonable restrictions, but then they never go through or define what those restrictions would be. And then anyone who talks about what a serious restriction might be gets called a Nazi or a fascist or a Trumper, and Trump derangement syndrome, which has captured the Beltway elites entirely. It doesn't matter if you're libertarian or not, Republican, libertarian, Democrat, everybody in DC has Trump derangement syndrome pretty much, unless you're on the president's team. But there was never any serious attempt to sort of deal with the actual serious problems of illegal criminals coming to the United States. And that's how we got Minnesota, right? Like, I don't understand like why other people are not able to steelman some of these arguments. You know, you wrote that Trump, you know, he took the wrong lesson from the 2024 election when it comes to border seriousness. 53% of Americans said to Pew that deportation efforts had gone too far. So, but the White House, they actually adjusted course in response. That's pretty reasonable. I mean, doesn't that suggest that the political feedback mechanism is working and this administration is capable of calibrating?
It does. And I think, while I would not a year ago have said that Tom Homan was going to be the voice of reason on immigration policy in the administration, I was pleasantly surprised to discover that that was the case. And the Homan made the case from the beginning, it turns out, that the border controls should be focused on basically screening for criminals and for rounding up those who had known gang ties, criminal backgrounds, that sort of thing, which is what the American people have been asking for in polling during the Biden administration. And I think that's a reasonable approach, where you are doing background screenings, where you're screening for health, for instance, where you're basically returning to the pre-1920s status in the U.S., where you check to make sure that people were going to be contributors to the U.S. economy rather than preying on the U.S. The Minnesota situation was much worse because it wasn't just a criminal population arriving. It was a population from a low trust society that then plugged into enablers in the government and were able to set up a scam, not just among themselves. This wasn't a criminal gang. They basically set up a fraud network with government money channeled to them. Well, taxpayer money, I should specify, channeled to them by government officials. So that's a problem with our welfare state and with our built-in government structure that could be exploited by people from a low trust society or and when I say a low trust society, there's a lot of them. My own ancestors, who came from a low trust society, but they weren't enabled. You didn't have that kind of a subsidy structure in the U.S. at the time, and now you do. And they were able to set up a massive multi-billion-dollar fraud as a result.
In 1980, during the Mariel boat lift, Fidel Castro, the Castro regime allowed and encouraged about 125,000 Cubans to immigrate to the United States. They had this crisis at the Peruvian embassy in Havana. Thousands sought asylum. Castro sort of exploited the situation by forcing boat owners to take not just dissidents, but also prisoners, mental patients, other antisocial people. Would the Cato Institute, Reason Magazine, do you think that they would support the importation of Cuban criminals? If third world countries want to empty their prisons into the United States, should we resist that with force?
Well, arguably, Venezuela did the same thing. There are a lot of stories that they just basically replicated the Cuban model. And that's why I said it sounds reasonable to me to do a background check, screens for criminal histories. I cannot speak, there is no group voice. There's not a memo sent out saying this is now what Cato and Reason believe. But I think it's reasonable to do background checks for criminal records. Were you released straight from a prison? Are you a known gang member? Do you have a record of preying on the population in your home country that's likely to be replicated if you're admitted to the United States? I think it's reasonable to check for that. And I would not want to replicate, the emptying of Cuban prisons into the U.S. or Venezuelan prisons. That's not something that should be an opportunity.
How about an ideological test? If you want to come to the United States and let's say you hate libertarianism and you despise the American Republic, you think Thomas Jefferson was a bastard and a slaveholder, and your favorite historian is Robert Zinn, should we allow that person to immigrate to the United States? Or Howard Zinn?
As tempting as that might be, I think that pragmatically, you and I both know where that would go after the next election. Once you put an ideological test into place and rationalize it and justify it, the next time you lose an election, that ideological test is going to be applied to your allies. You know that. You and I both know that.
But that doesn't scare me anymore. That doesn't scare me anymore because the problem the problem with that argument, JD, has always been, and this is where I'm really feeling just disillusioned with libertarianism in the United States is that this idea that the left isn't going to completely and totally dominate us in every way possible, that they wouldn't do everything in their power to completely and totally destroy us as an excuse for inaction, which to me is fairly common sense. If you want to come to the United States and you hate the founding fathers and you don't believe in the American experiment and you despise libertarians, absolutely not. There's no way I would let someone like that pass a security check. And that's my gut instinct. There's no Cato or Reason paper that's going to justify that. But I just feel as if we're a bunch of eggheads trying to use GDP numbers to juice an ideology rather than using good, fair and open and common sense about who should come to the United States. If you come here specifically for the purpose of destroying our liberty in one way or another, I say absolutely not, because I'm not afraid. I'm not terrified if Democrats might do something to us when they get in. They will do something to us, JD. Can't you see that?
Except I'll point out that we don't have an ideological test right now. Once you implement it, once that's in place, then it's just a matter of tweaking the definitions. My support or my opposition putting an ideological test in place, my opposition to allowing government censorship isn't an idealistic one. It's a pragmatic one. I fully understand that the enemies of liberty exist, are looking for excuses to crack down and to suppress ideas they don't like. But once you justify it, you lose the ability to fight back once they take control of that.
But we're libertarians. But no, we don't lose the ability to fight back. We don't lose the ability to fight back. We get another chance to come back in the next election 2 to 4 years later. I mean, I guess I really am deeply concerned that a sort of a lack of guts. There's something about Trump that is admirable because it feels as if, if you were Julius Caesar and you were standing looking at the river, the Rubicon, and you were told to surrender your armies and give yourself over to your enemies to be hanged, JD, would you cross the Rubicon or with your army or without it?
You do remember that Julius Caesar overthrew a republic and became a dictator.
But I mean, the problem is libertarians are asking Americans to commit suicide in order to uphold an ideology, right? You can't ask people. The reason why we lose so losingly is because the American people look at us and they say, and they say, we're going to leave our armies behind and cross the Rubicon and surrender ourselves to our enemies and people who hate us. And I promise you that we'll lose 100% of the time. I promise.
I don't want to hand new weapons to my enemies. Right now, the courts and the laws keep us all in balance, no matter how much progressives or totalitarians might despise me already. Once I implement a weapon that is more effective in their hands, because ideological tests in my hands aren't going to turn this country into a totalitarian state. But once I implement that ideological test or any other crackdown on civil liberties, and then I lose the next election, that test, that crackdown on civil liberties in the hands of somebody who is honestly hostile to liberty is a much more dangerous weapon. We should
crack down on the civil liberties of people who want to crack down on our civil liberties. In other words, we should fashion weapons for ourselves, JD. Even if I fashion a weapon for myself before I get into a fight, is there a chance that a guy's going to steal my bat and use it against me? Sure. Would I rather have but should you take the bat to the fight anyway? Yes. Like, in other words, the left, game theory shows that you will lose 100% of the time with that strategy, JD, because if you never cheat, the other side will always cheat. It's the prisoner and the diamond. They will always betray. We know that our enemies will always cheat. The Marxists, the communists, the Islamists, the socialists, the leftoids, the third worldists. You have to have you got to build a bat, JD, and they might take it from you, not if you hit them first, though.
This is the European Union's argument. This is how we ended up with hate speech laws in the European Union. They were only going to use it against the bad people. And the next thing you know, I think that the laws were in place in Germany within a year. They were prosecuting people who said mean things about Green Party politicians. They always justify it. These laws are always justified as only going against the bad people. They're only going to be used against the Nazis and the communists. And then they're put on the books. And the next thing you know is you got the editor of a satire magazine cooling his heels in jail because he published a nasty cartoon about the chancellor.
No, I think that I think we live like in an anarcho-tyranny, as Michael Malice has described. I don't think that there are really any rules. I think, I get lectured by libertarians about like the international order and the rules that Trump is breaking. And quite frankly, I find it quite refreshing. And he was a Julius Caesar, and they did put his back to the wall and arrest him and force him to cross the Rubicon with his armies. And he has defied conventions. And while he is not always technically correct, JD, he is directionally correct in the way all of the worst people in the world, the scum, oppose him. So how can I not support him when he is the only person? If I had to have a choice between a pure libertarian who didn't do shit and a non-libertarian who sometimes did libertarian shit, I would vote for the non-libertarian who sometimes did libertarian shit. What about you?
The thing is, if we accept your argument, and I don't, but that Donald Trump is directionally correct, you're relying upon the personality and personal restraint of one person. It's the Caesar problem all over again. What about the heirs of Caesar? What happens when Caligula comes in? And Trump's Caligula, we don't know who that is waiting in the wings. But once those powers are in place, man, they're going to be used by whoever comes next and whoever takes the seats of power.
Caligula was little boots, and Trump was little hands. JD, I'm running out of time. I had to make the little boots reference and little hands. Will you please share listen, thank you for being so tolerant of dissent in libertarian ideas. And I want to talk about this more, but I want to give you a chance to plug all your stuff for people to read.
Absolutely. Well, look, reason.com, look for Tuccille, Tuccille. My stuff is all good, as Austin will tell you.
Yeah.
So please come in and read it.
And sign up for the Rattler so you can get his emails too. That's how I know that he's got some new stuff there. JD, thanks so much for your time. We appreciate you, sir. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks for having me on. You take care.
Thank you very much. Great conversation. Honestly, needed to happen because I don't have all the answers. I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I'm just, capable of running a search engine and finding out stuff. Maybe I am a midwit. I don't know. I just don't know where I belong. I do. Actually, I do. Right here on the For Liberty Network. Thank you guys so much for all your support. Don't forget to go, as you exit through the Griff Shop at forlibertyshop.com. Buy yourself a box of our delicious Madisonian morning coffee. Absolutely delicious coffee. The best coffee in the world at forlibertyshop.com. That's the number 4. forlibertyshop.com. Head on over there, do some shopping. Celebrate America's 250th anniversary. The best of Alexander Hamilton, the best of Thomas Jefferson. If Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton had a baby, a love child, then that would be libertarian nationalism. There it is. Hope you guys enjoyed that conversation. You're not going to hear those conversations anywhere else. Jeremy Kauffman, JD Tuccille, that immigration debate, Abolish the Libertarian Party. There are no other shows that cover the stories the way that we do. So tell your friends, tell your enemies. Wake Up America show is coming on the For Liberty Network. Tis the year of our Lord, 1801. President Trump Jefferson casts his gaze o'er the sovereign Potomac and beholds a most wretched spectacle upon the waters. From the cursed shores of Tripoli and the welfare coffers of distant Minnesota comes the brazen Captain Ilhan Omar, commanding her fleet of Barbary pirates. She demands her ransom, billions in reparations. Yet one instrument of fortitude suffices, a steaming chalice of Jeffersonian Java, bold and unapologetic from For Liberty Shop. No more tribute to rogues, he thunders, and dispatches the Navy and Marines to smash Omar's fleet asunder. Trump Jefferson stands triumphant as Omar's plunder meets the end it deserved back in Minnesota. Jeffersonian Java, the coffee that gives true Americans the courage to refuse tribute and rebuke fraud. Procure yours at forlibertyshop.com and make America caffeinated again. George Washington spent 8 years making sure nobody knew where he was. Troop movements, secret dispatches. The man was a ghost. So when a barista leaned out a window and asked for his exact location in exchange for points they called stars, he looked at his flag and said, "I've already got my stars. 13 of them." Keep your dignity and your location intact. Grab a box of Washington's Revolutionary Roast at 4libertyshop.com.